Hello and welcome. I'm super excited to launch this free Azure Fundamentals course today. In this course, I'll teach you everything that you need to get solid foundations of Azure, such as Azure Compute, Storage, Networking, Identity, Monitoring, Azure Containers, Azure Kubernetes, and much more. This course will not only help you clear AZ-900 exam, but will also set the stage for you to advance your learning in the world of Azure. You can go on to become Azure Administrator or Azure Architect, obviously post learning more about those exams. And if you are new to IT or cloud, I know you might be wondering whether if there are any prerequisites as such, but I want to assure you there are no prerequisites as such, but having general understanding of IT would definitely help. And last but not the least, in this course we're gonna explore a lot of hands-on labs and demos which will solidify your understanding of the concepts that we're gonna learn. Alright, so without further ado, let's get started and head straight to the whiteboard and learn about cloud computing and Azure. See you there.
All right, perfect. Welcome back. So before I head to the whiteboard and explain you what is cloud computing and how is it different from traditional IT model, quickly take a look at what are the learning objectives of this video. What are we gonna learn? Okay, we're gonna learn what is cloud computing. I'm gonna define it for you. What's called cloud computing, and we'll also try to describe the shared responsibility model. Okay, so cloud computing is a service that's being offered by a third party cloud provider, right? So what is the responsibility that falls in his bucket, and what is the responsibility that falls on the bucket of a customer? Okay, what is it that customer needs to do? What are his responsibilities? What is the responsibility of a cloud provider? We'll look at that as part of shared responsibility model. And then we'll try to define the cloud models, including public, private, and hybrid. And then we'll identify appropriate use cases for each model. When do you need to use public, when do you need to use private and hybrid? And then describe the consumption based model. What is consumption based model? And then we'll compare cloud pricing models as well. Okay, so those are the learning objectives. So let me quickly head to the whiteboard here, and let's see and try to understand what is cloud computing. All right, perfect. So before I tell you what cloud computing is, let's try to understand how things used to work before the evolution of cloud computing. Okay, let's assume you have a supermarket. Okay, you have a supermarket. Let me take this. You have a supermarket. Okay, you own a supermarket. You are the owner of it, and what you want to do is you want to 1 minute. Let me just get this right. Okay, for some reason it's not working. Fine. Yo, so as a owner of the supermarket, you want to create a website so that your customers can offer your products from by sitting from just from their store. Okay, so for that, obviously, you have the code developed. You need to host it somewhere, right? So before the evolution of cloud computing, what you need to do is you would need to buy a server. Okay, you need to buy a server, and then and then and once that server arrives, you need to obviously host it in your data center. Okay, you need to host that in your data center. And then so this is server. Can I make it, yeah, small? Yeah, this is a server. Okay, let's say you've bought a server. Then you need to you could have hosted it in a data center, or you could have hosted in your own store. You need to allocate a space where you can store this server within a store. Okay, so and then once that server is has arrived, and once you host it, then you need to configure it. Okay, you need to make sure that it has got the operating system running in it. And then once the OS is running, then you would install the necessary applications. Okay, OS is running, and then yeah, OS is running, and then you need to ensure that it has internet connectivity and all those things. So it takes good amount of time, from the time you buy a server to the time it arrives, and then you provision it, and then you do whole lot of different things. Okay, so this is time consuming. Okay, this is time consuming. So let me just write it down here. This is this is time consuming process. Okay, right. So all right, time confusing consuming. Now, with the evolution of cloud computing, you don't have to do all those things. Okay, now if you want to host a website, if you have a website that you want to host it, and you wanted to make sure that it's up and running, you just need to go to a cloud provider. Okay, in this case it's going to be Azure. Okay, you go to Azure. Okay, and then initially you can definitely buy a free trial, but that's not recommended for the production workload. So you buy a subscription. Okay, you go to Azure, and then you buy a subscription that's going to be in a uh, pay as you go mode. Okay, you only pay for what you use. Then you can quickly provision a VM or a container uh, based on where how you want your application to be running. I'll explain what is a VM, what is a container later. But yeah, instead of provisioning a physical virtual machine, you will provision a virtual machine over. Instead of provisioning a physical machine, you'll provision a virtual machine over here. And then on top of that virtual machine, you would install your application, and you'll host that application, and then it will be up and running. Okay, so that's the entire um, benefit of cloud computing. So it's fast, it's quick, and so what are the benefits? So benefits are it's fast. Okay, you don't have to wait for days or months for your servers to arrive and those things to happen. It's fast, it's quick, and it's secure. Obviously clouds are secure. Cloud providers have a host of security certifications, and they are in a better position to handle attacks such as DDoS. I'll explain what DDoS is. Okay, I'll explain what DDoS is later. Yeah, I mean, it's fast, quick, and it's scalable. Okay, so let's say if your application, let me write the name of your application here, www dot w dot yourapplication.com. Okay, let's say if your application, one fine day, a lot of customers are coming in and ordering, okay, your products, uh, and then your the server is in a position, the server is not in a position to handle it. Okay, it would have a limited amount of, let's say it would have some CPU, RAM, and disk, right? Obviously, so these resources are limited. Okay, these resources are limited. So let's say if you have got a lot of customers hitting your website one fine day, like Black Fridays or things like that, where you have a lot of customers coming in. So in that case, your application gets a lot of traffic, and it's not in a position to handle that much traffic. Then your website would obviously, unfortunately, will go down. But that's not the case in the case of cloud computing. The servers are scalable, so based on the demand they would scale. If there is a huge traffic hitting in, then cloud computing providers have capabilities that will ensure that your website is in a position to handle that much of traffic. Okay, they're scalable, and they're highly available as well. Okay, I'll explain what that means later. Okay, as we discuss further slides. So yeah, this is about cloud computing. This is what cloud computing is all about. So it's a delivery of services over the internet. You don't have to buy a server and host it in your store. You can just go to a cloud provider and request your services from there. Okay, now let's quickly head over to the slides and see what we have in store there. Okay, cool. So what is Microsoft Azure then? So Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform, just like AWS or GCP. Those are also cloud computing providers. Microsoft Azure is also one of the top second cloud provider in the market right now, with an ever expanding set of services to help you build solution to meet your business goals. Okay, so that's what Microsoft Azure is. Azure is continuously expanding is its services. Okay, so Azure has simple web services for hosting your business presence in the cloud. Like, it has got host of services, not only from simple web services to very cutting edge technologies like artificial intelligence or cloud computing or generative AI. Okay, so Azure offers wealth of services, as I said: remote storage, database hosting, centralized account management, artificial intelligence, and internet of things. So it has got host of services that are available on Azure. Okay, so let me quickly go. All right, perfect. So we are onto the Azure portal right now, and from here you would provision your services. What you need, let's say if you need a VM, you can go here and create a new VM. You can create a new VM. But yeah, when I say host of services, you can see over here in the screen, it has got virtual machine, Cosmos DB, SQL database, storage accounts, load balancer, and much more. That's what I mean when I say it has got host of services or a wealth of services like remote storage, database hosting, centralized account management, artificial intelligence, and internet of things. All right, so what is Azure fundamental sense? What is this course all about? So Azure fundamental is a series of uh, three learning paths that's there on Microsoft Learn that familiarize you with Azure and its many services and features. Okay, so I'll divide that learning path that's there from Microsoft into multiple videos for you to easily consume it, easily learn it. Okay, so this course educates you about various services available on Azure and when to use them. Okay, so the whole purpose of this fundamental Azure fundamental course is to educate you what are the various services available on Azure and when should you use them. So is there any prerequisite? Well, technical IT experience isn't required as such. I don't expect you to have worked in IT. However, having a general IT knowledge will help you get the most out of this course. Okay, so if you just know the basics of IT, like what is an IP, um, what is the network and things like that, if you know that, that's well and good. If even if you do not, then not to worry, I'll try to explain things in a very simple and clear way so that you are able to grasp it even though you're from non-IT background. All right, so why should you take this course? If you're just beginning to work with the cloud, or if you already have cloud experience, Azure fundamentals provide you with everything you need to get started. Okay, so yeah, if you already are working in IT, or if you're not, in either case this will help you, because it will give you good foundations to get started in the cloud computing world. So you should take this course if you have general interest in Azure. Okay, in Azure cloud, you're passionate about learning Azure or cloud computing, then obviously you should take this course. Or else if you want to earn official certification from Microsoft. Okay, you've got passion, you've got interest to learn cloud, but you also want to that certification from Microsoft, that which is AZ-900, then you should take this course. Okay, perfect. So what will be covered in this exam? So this exam AZ-900 is will test your knowledge in three domain areas. First is it will test you on cloud concepts, how well you know them, and the weightage will be 25 to 30%. And then it would ask questions on Azure architecture and services, that's about 35 to 40. And then Azure management and governance, that's 30 to 35%. Okay, all right, so I'll try to ensure that I create one video for each of these domain areas. But sometimes if they are becoming too complex, then for the easier consumption, I'll split the course into multiple videos so that you are in a position to better understand it. Okay, so what is cloud computing is we've already seen on the whiteboard. Let's see what the slides have to tell us. So cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet, as we have seen on the whiteboard. What do I mean by computing services? Okay, it's virtual machines, storage account, databases, networking, internet of things, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Okay, so when I say computing services, I mean they can be, if you need a VM, you can get the VM right over the internet, okay, via internet, through these cloud providers, or any of these services. Okay. So it's essentially, cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet. Okay, so what's the shared responsibility model? Okay, I told you right at the beginning of the session that there are certain responsibilities that fall on the shoulders of cloud provider, because they are the one who hosts the data, who hosts the data center, who hosts those servers, and they are the one who do all the networking behind the scenes. So there are certain things that fall in their category, and there are certain things that fall on the category of a customer. So let's see. Okay, now in the case of on premises, as you can see, in the world of on premises, everything was responsibility of customer. When I say everything, I mean, physical data center, physical network, physical host, operating system, network controls, app, everything that's there here. Okay, it was all the responsibility of customer, because they were the ones who were hosting the servers in their data centers, as I showed you on here. Okay, yeah, in this traditional world, you had this, you are the one who are hosting the server, and that's in your, within your store or data center. So it was your responsibility, everything. Now since in this case, in the world of cloud computing, there is uh, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, as we know. So infrastructure as service, platform as service, and software as a service. So there are certain things that fall on the responsibility of cloud provider. In this case, it's Microsoft. So physical data center, network, and host, they are all the responsibility of Microsoft. In the case of IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service. Okay. So when I say infrastructure as a service, what I mean is, you request infrastructure from the cloud provider, and the examples of that would be, let me go here. Examples of that would be VM, virtual machine, that's an infrastructure as a service. And then you have storage account, and network. Those things fall into the IaaS category. Okay, let me just come here. These are IaaS. They fall into the category of a cloud provider. Okay. uh, uh, okay, this is IaaS. Now, so in case of IaaS, it's cloud provider who needs to take care of these things, and then customer has to take care of these things, like operating system, network controls, application, identity and directory, infrastructure, accounts and identities, devices, and data. All these things fall onto the shoulders of customer. Okay, so let's say if you have, as I told you, right, we virtual machine is a category, is falls under the category of IaaS. So if you create a virtual machine, that you are responsible for installing an operating system on it. You decide whether you want a Linux or a VM, or a Windows operating system, and then you configure all the network controls and applications. Okay, and then in case of PaaS, besides these things, in case of PaaS, now operating system goes into the category of the cloud provider. In this case, it's Microsoft. So Microsoft would be responsible for operating system, and then network controls, applications, and identity and directory. These would be shared by, it's 50-50 responsibility of Microsoft, and 50% responsibility of the customer. Okay, and then top three would be, customer would be responsible for the top three ones. Okay, and then for these things, it would be SaaS. Now let me quickly head to the whiteboard and explain to you what I mean by that. Okay, let me just draw this. It's going to be a bit lengthy, but I hope this will help you. Please excuse me for my bad drawing. Oh, that's even bad. Let's try to make this a good one. Cool. So let me say this is IS, Let me say, okay. Oh, oh yeah. Okay, pass. This is pass. This is SAS. Okay, cool. So in case of you know this is IS pass and SAS. Okay, so for IS, the cloud provider would be responsible for ensuring that the ensuring let me just head here, physical data center, physical network, and physical host would be the responsibility of a cloud provider, because this server is residing in the Azure's data center. So they are responsible for ensuring all these things: physical network, physical host. Okay, cool. Now for operating system, network controls, and applications, it's the customer who is responsible, because on top of this server, they are the one who would decide whether they want a Windows or a Linux or a other operating system. Okay, on this server they would decide what OS they need. Okay, okay, cool. For PaaS, now when we say PaaS, platform as a service, which stands for platform as a service, it's the customer. So what we are saying, when we say, when we request PaaS resources from a cloud provider, uh, we we want the example of that would be, let me give you an example of PaaS. That would be a web app. Okay, Azure web app. So Azure web app is an example of PaaS service. Now for PaaS, um, OS and installation of OS goes into the responsibility of Microsoft. And then network controls, application and infrastructure and directory, this again would become half, okay, 50-50. And then accounts and information data and devices, this comes into the responsibility of customer. For SaaS, more stuff goes into the umbrella of cloud provider, like network controls, application, and identity and directory becomes half, and top three again goes into the category of customer. All right, hope this was informative. Let's proceed ahead. Let's define cloud model. The cloud models define the deployment of cloud services. Okay, there are three main cloud models: public, private, and hybrid. Okay, so public is public cloud computing model is built, controlled, and maintained by a third party cloud provider. In this case, it's going to be Microsoft. Okay, and then the general public availability is the key difference between public and private. I'll explain you what that means in a minute. Okay, and then the other one is private. It's a cloud that's used by single entity. So when we say, as the word private indicates, it's private to a particular customer. Okay, now private cloud providers provides much greater control for the company and its IT department. Okay, because it's specifically for you. You have got more control over the servers, over the the security and the availability uh, of the server, because it's dedicated to you. On-site, off-site, or third-party data center. So private cloud can be hosted either on-site or off-site or third-party data center. So when I say on-site, I mean if you've got a supermarket, then you can host it in your own supermarket. That would be off-site. Or else, if you don't want to host it in your own supermarket, you may host it to a different place within that city. That would be termed as offsite. And third party, instead of hosting on-site or offsite, you would host it onto the location of a third party data center. Okay, so that's again private. Hybrid. And the third one is hybrid. A hybrid is a computing environment that uses both public and private clouds in an interconnected environment. Okay, so a hybrid cloud environment can be used to allow private cloud to search for increase a temporary demand by deploying public cloud services. So what hybrid cloud environment does is, it gives you that benefit to leverage the public cloud when your private cloud is full. Okay, let me just head over here. What I mean by that is, okay, let me just move this here. Okay, let's say this is your private cloud. Okay, this server is hosted in your private cloud, and for some reason this has reached 100% capacity. Okay, you've used all your uh, resources on your private cloud. So when it's not available, when you have used everything, we can go to a public cloud provider like Azure. In this case it would be Azure. You can go to Azure. Hey, my private cloud is full. I wanna meanwhile while I use while I increase the capacity over there, I wanna use services from you, and there's gonna be the public cloud. Okay. Uh, so this is gonna be public cloud. Okay, that's what it means. So as when your private cloud is full, you're going to use your public cloud in the interim to ensure that you have your applications up and running. Okay, hybrid cloud can be used to provide an extra layer of security. Okay, let's take a look at the difference between public, private and hybrid. So for public, no capital expenditures to scale. Okay, you don't need any money right upfront to scale it. Private cloud organizations have complete control over resources and security. Hybrid cloud provides the most flexibility. Public cloud applications can be quickly provisioned and deprovisioned. Obviously it's public, you can go ahead and request a VM or a virtual machine scale, so you can quickly provision and deprovision. And for private, data is not co-located with other organizations data. Okay, so since it's private, it's only dedicated to you. Someone's else data is not co-located with your data, or your data is not co-located with us. It's private, it's completely dedicated to you. Organizations determine where to run their applications. Then public cloud organizations pay only for what they use. Hardware must be purchased for startup and maintenance. Okay, yeah, since it's private, you need to buy hardware upfront and for startup and maintenance. And then organizations control security, compliance, or legal requirements. And organizations don't have complete control over resources and security. You don't have complete control over the hardware, and then onto the granular things, because it's located your cloud provider's data center. And whereas for private cloud, organizations are responsible for hardware maintenance and updates. Okay, all right, so let's take a look at multi-cloud. An organization making use of one or more cloud to host their business application or services. So multi-cloud, if I go over here. Okay, so multi-cloud is like you're gonna use both multiple cloud providers. You're gonna use uh, Azure, AWS, and GCP. Azure, Azure, and you wanna use AWS as well. Yes, and then use GCP, for example. Okay, so multi-cloud is a scenario where you would use more than one cloud provider. Okay, that's what this slide means. Okay, all right, so describe the consumption based model. All right, let's try to describe consumption based model, because the cloud is all about consumption based. You only pay for what you use. Okay, you pay based on how much you consume. Okay, so let's compare capex versus opex. So there is something called capex, capital expenditure, and then there is something called opex, operational expenditure. So capital expenditure is you would spend the money right away to buy the hardware. Okay, that's what you need to do for in the traditional IT world, where you have to buy the server upfront, whether you use it or not, whether you completely use it or not, you would have to do that. Okay, so the upfront spending of money on physical infrastructure, as I said, cost from capex have a value that reduces over time. Okay, let's say you've bought a server right now, that's okay, that's some dollars. Then over the time the value would decrease. Okay, because obviously as you use it, it's not an asset, obviously it's a liability, so the value would decrease. Then there is something called operational expenditure. Spend on products and services as needed, pay as you go, get billed immediately. Okay, you pay for what you use and you get billed immediately. Okay, as you can see in this diagram, you spend the money right away, whereas for operational expenditure you spend the money in small portions, and also on the basis of what how much you consume. Okay, So a consumption based model, cloud service providers operate on a consumption based model, as I said, which means that end users only pay for resources they use. Yeah, that's better for cost prediction. Prices for individual resources and services are provided. You would get to know how much a VM would consume for the entire month. Okay, billing is based on actual usage. They don't bill you for the even if you don't use it, they'll bill you for what you provision. All right, the consumption based model has got a lot of benefits. No upfront cost, so there is no upfront cost. You don't have to buy costly servers right away and spend your hard earned money. Okay, so no need to purchase and manage costly infrastructures that users might not use to its fullest potential. Okay, so there is a possibility that you have bought a big rack and you have virtualized it, and each individual VM is not consuming the amount of RAM and CPU that you have allocated it. So that goes away with consumption based model. The ability to pay for more resources when they are needed. So you have the ability to pay for more resources when you need them, the ability to stop paying for resources that are no longer needed. You also get the ability to stop paying for resources that you no longer need. Okay, so now let's look at the benefits of cloud services. After completing this module, you'll be able to describe the benefits of high availability and scalability in the cloud, describe the benefits of reliability and predictability, benefits of security and governance, benefits of manageability. So yeah, those are the things that we're gonna see. So first benefit of cloud is high availability. Okay, so cloud offers high availability. So what I mean by that is, let's say you've created a virtual machine on Azure. Okay, so cloud offers two things. There is something called uh, availability set. I'll explain this in detail in the latest slides, but just for this, let me just throw a bird's eye view on this. Okay, so there is something called availability set. Okay, and then there is something called availability zone. Okay, so availability zone. Okay, so with these offerings, with these features, what basically happens is, if your virtual machine goes down for some reason, okay, then what Azure does is, it routes the traffic to a different VM in the same availability set. Okay, obviously you have to do some configurations, and and then show in the later slides what those configurations are. But the point that I want to make is, the VMs in the cloud or in Azure, or for that matter, any offering, be it web app or storage account, virtual network, they are generally highly available. Okay, so cloud offers high availability. That's the point I want to make here. And then there is something called scalability as well. Okay, so if you want, let's say if you quickly want, let's say you have got a website running on this VM. Let's say your supermarket.com. Okay, this website is running and there is a huge spike in the traffic, and this virtual machine has reached its fullest potential in terms of CPU ram, CPU ram, okay, and disk. Then you want to scale it, right? You want to have a similar set of VMs running. Then in that case, what you can do is, you can quickly provision different virtual machines. Okay, just a minute. You can quickly provision other machines. Okay, that's what scalability is. It scales based on the demand. Okay, it scales based on the demand. You can have quick virtual machines. Uh, okay, so there can be a VM2 right away. VM2, VM1 is occupied, or VM1 is you know uh, completely utilized. Then you can have VM1, VM2, and similarly VM3 in the cloud. Okay, that's what it means by scalability. Okay, now scalability itself has got two categories: horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. What horizontal scaling means is, it scales horizontally. Okay, the VMs scales horizontally, so it means is, you can have multiple VMs uh, of the same size provision. Okay, so there'll be multiple VMs. VM3 would get, if you have horizontal scaling configured, then there would be uh, multiple VMs of the same configuration that would get created. Okay, that's what horizontal scaling means. You'll have many VMs coming up of the same size. That's what horizontal scaling is. Okay, now what is vertical scaling? There is something called vertical scaling as well here. The vertical scaling is, on the same VM you'll increase the RAM, CPU and disk. Okay, so it would be like this. Okay, let me turn this upside down. Oh, wait. Okay, so it would be like this. You can see this arrow mark, right? This arrow mark is suggesting that it would scale vertical. You'll have more CPU, RAM and disk getting added to your virtual machine. Okay, and then there is reliability. So obviously these resources on the cloud are reliable, and cloud providers do ensure that their infrastructure is up and running all the time. And then there is a security, better security as well on cloud, when compared to on premises, because Microsoft invests billions of dollars each year to ensure that they mitigate the attacks that happen to their infrastructure, and they have got new features and capabilities available all the time. And then there is governance, so you can make use of things like Azure policies and Azure blueprints that I'll show you in the upcoming slides or in the upcoming videos, the features that are available to govern the resources on cloud. And there is manageability. You have better manageability, especially one example could be of an Azure portal where you can manage your resources in a plain and smooth manner. Besides that, you have got Azure CLI as well, where you can manage your resources. And then there is something called monitoring. Okay, you can make use of Azure Monitor and other capabilities to manage your workloads running on Azure. And then performance is obviously increases, um, because you have features like scalability and high availability that will give you good performance. And then cost is there. Cost can be reduced on cloud if you manage it correctly. If you apply right FinOps practices, then your cost would obviously come low. And then predictability as well, you can predict how much your workload would consume over time. Okay, all right, so these are the benefits of cloud. And as I said, let's look at the benefits of security and governance. There are capabilities, as I said, there are capabilities within Azure, such as Azure policy or blueprints, that would allow you to govern your resources. And then security, IaaS provide more control. Since it provides you more control, you have the capability to install the OS of your choice and configure extensions on it and other things. Therefore it gives you more control and more security. And PaaS or SaaS, if you want patches be applied automatically, you can use PaaS and SaaS, right? So and there are two types of management options on the cloud. Management of the cloud itself, what I mean by that is management of cloud speaks to managing your cloud resources. Okay, so in the cloud you can automatically scale resources deployment based on need, as I said, and deploy resources based on pre-configured template, arm templates or terraform templates, removing the need for manual configuration. Monitor the health of resources and automatically replace failing resources. So you can manage the health of your resources. As I said, you can make use of Azure Monitor. Let me quickly come up here. So here you go, Azure Monitor. If you create alerts, if you create notifications, then yeah, that this would help you managing your resources well. Okay, so as I said, receive automatic alerts based on configured metrics, so you are aware of performance in real time. Okay, so those are the ways in which you manage your resources running on the cloud. And then management in the cloud, as I said, through the web portal, as I showed you, using a command line interface. I just showed you here, this one is the command line. uh, I can click on bash or PowerShell, and then it will create a storage account for me. I don't want to do it right now. And then you can also manage it using APIs and using PowerShell. Right, so I hope this was helpful, and I hope this has given you some good clarity and idea as to how things work in the cloud. And yeah, thank you so much. So stay tuned for more videos on Azure 900 AZ 900, which is the Microsoft Fundamentals exam. And I hope post completing this you would be in a position to pass this exam.